While America has religiously and culturally been pluralistic from the beginning, regrettably, we have also had a long history of fear of that very diversity. Our history is rife with the theme of fear of the unknown, of community and systematic targeting of the others. So the purpose of my presentation is really to explore that history as it relates to, I think in my mind, one of the most dangerous elements of xenophobia and Islamophobia, and perhaps the most pervasive, is dangerous rhetoric. And we've all heard it, and all of you can probably quote it on a daily basis. We know that when the University of North Carolina assigned reading of the Quran to incoming freshmen, Bill O'Reilly compared the assignment to having students read Hitler's Mein Kampf. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich on Fox and Friends discussing the Park 51 / Manhattan Mosque / Ground Zero Mosque / whatever you want to call it, said about it, you know, Nazis don't have the right to put up a sign next to the Holocaust Museum in Washington. We would never accept the Japanese putting up a site next to Pearl Harbor. There's no reason for us to accept a mosque next to the World Trade Center. Tea Party founder Judson Phillips recently said that Keith Ellison should be voted out of Congress because, among other things, he's a Muslim. And we all know the most recent is journalist Juan Williams on Fox News, who said, but when I get on a plane, I gotta tell you, if I see people who are in Muslim garb, and I think, you know, they are identifying them first and foremost as Muslim, I get worried. I get nervous. For the Catholics, I'll go back to them again, the belief was widely held and preached by some of the most prominent ministers in America that Catholics would, if permitted, turn America over to the Pope, which is a similar concept we should recognize today. In Massachusetts, only Christians were allowed to hold public office, and Catholics were only allowed to make foreign those who we persecute. Foreignness, as Northwestern University professor Bonnie Hung said, is a symbolic marker that the nation attaches to a people we want to target, we want to disavow, we want to deport or detain because we experience them as a threat. And yet, in 1785, James Madison perceived the nation as, quote, an asylum to the persecuted and oppressed of every nation and religion. I think by recognizing that deep religious discord has been a part of America's DNA is healthy and a necessary first step to realizing that truth that Madison spoke about. But it's also just the first step. So I'll really leave it at that.
In America right now there is this irrational fear of Islam, right? And we need to fight that irrational fear with reason and sanity. And that's what we want to do today here. Or at least start that process, right? So speaking of sanity and fear, how many people went to the rally last? I wanted to show you one picture of two of my friends. One of them is Asad Khan, the guy who's over there. He wore his Muslim, like his khaki cap, a kufi, white kufi. He also has this big American, this huge American flag that he held up from one end. And on the other end was my other friend, a long-time friend since high school and even into college, and then Zanolivsky. And he held up the other side of the flag. So here you had an American Muslim and an American Jew who are coming together, both as Americans and holding up the American flag. And they were actually a big hit, right? As they walked through the rally, people all around the world, before and after 9/11, have condemned Al-Qaeda and their actions. Even Wahhabi scholars in Saudi Arabia. And never mind that even among Imam Rauf's congregation, they are victims of 9/11. And never mind that Imam Abdul Rauf has worked for both State Departments to try and win the hearts and minds of the Muslim world, probably doing more in this war on terror than all of us here combined. Never mind all that. Bill O'Reilly is still content at smearing the entire Muslim world, the entirety of Islam. So much so that because of the action of a few Muslims, no American Muslim or no Muslim or no segment of Islam can build next to ground zero. The people who we should really fear are not the innocent Muslims living among us as neighbors and as fellow Americans, but those people who are trying to sow the seeds of hatred among us. Those people who try to divide us with half-truths and falsehood, pit American versus American. Maybe once we understand it, we can come together as all Americans and try to build a better country, so much so that even Muslim majority countries will look to us for inspiration. I want to end now with a quote from Abraham Lincoln, because I think it's really important. He said that America will never be destroyed from the outside if we falter or lose our freedoms, if we leave because we destroyed ourselves. Thank you.
And I think it's safe to say that, no doubt, I am an American. But not only am I an American, I'm a proud Muslim American. So now, My response for all those ignorant blog comments and post discussions stating such contemptuous things like America would be better off without Muslims, or all Muslims should go back to their own country. I simply shrug my shoulders, chuckle, and reply, "This is my country." And it's currently the country for at least 2 million other Muslims who too have goals and aspirations for that American dream. To say the least, in terms of the ideological views of acceptance, Islam and America are actually quite similar. Islam welcomes and accepts anyone into the religion, despite race, ethnicity, gender, appearance, height, family background, past history, etc., just as America. So why does a problem like Islamophobia even exist, when the concept itself is, quite frankly, very un-American? In order to tackle this question, we must first take a step back and think about what it means to be an American. Reflect and remember back on what the concept of what the American dream really is. When Scholastic Incorporated asked American youth that same question, readers like 10-year-old Caitlin T. from Wisconsin or 11-year-old Krista G. from Alabama had a proud response of, "An American is to be free and to be treated equally." Or, "I love America because I have so many rights. I love having freedom of speech, the freedom of being your own individual, and the ability to practice your own religious beliefs. I like that we have a democracy and people can be who they want." It's such a heartwarming thing to hear our own they want. Isn't America supposed to be a role model? What happened to the religious tolerance that our founding fathers envisioned for America? It hits me. It's not the religion that is flawed, nor is it the American policies. But in both incidences, it's merely the people. Have we forgotten the important figures and battles of our historical past? Have we forgotten the powerful speech of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who preached the wise words of, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed." We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Have we forgotten that America itself was founded on homesteaders who left the big cities of the East to find land and opportunity, and immigrants who came looking for their bit of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, their dreams? Have we all forgotten this, that we must have such a problem like Islamophobia, or any other pro-discrimination phobia for that matter? The answer to the problem of Islamophobia does not lie in the fact that Muslims must change themselves, or that religion must vanish. However, the answer is simply within us Americans. The answer purely is, we must be true Americans and start acting like it.
That would be the time. Again, I think for right now, we're giving everyone a minute, depending on how many people actually ask questions, if there are any.
So like, I encourage you to see that stuff, and you just kind of take it with a grain of salt, or how does it like really make you feel?
Like, we shouldn't be pointing fingers at them, saying that they're saying wrong things about us. I feel like instead, as Muslims, we should stand up and show what the true meaning of Islam really is, and what we Muslims.
I guess some things that you would say these are American values or American traditions, which you can clearly see in Islam. They go hand in hand. But at the same time, what you see is these are Islamic traditions that are in contrast with what would be considered mainstream American values or traditions.
Like an example of an Islamic tradition that goes against American tradition?
It's both, because obviously with any group, there's a lot of similarities and differences. And I'm just trying to understand, in a sense, what are those?
Well, a difference would be such as like, for example, modesty is a huge thing. I know in Western culture, a lot of the motto is like, if you have it, flaunt it. Mm-hmm. And, people like to show off their extravagant cars, houses, all this thing. But in Islam, it's looked upon to be very humble and to be very modest about what you have and the money you have. We don't believe in selfishness. We believe in giving to others. We believe in donating our money and helping the poor and helping charities, helping orphanages. And I know in American tradition, not tradition, but a lot of the pop culture is about if you have a flaunt, such as if you have a nice body, show it off. If you have a nice house, show it off. If you have money, buy something better and be better than the class below you. Mm-hmm. So that's a contrast. A similarity is that Muslims we accept people from all backgrounds. We don't, if you're willing to...
Real Christianity is. This is what real Judaism is. All right? The reality, when we look about in the Islamic world, the Jewish world, in the Christian world, and the human world, there are plenty of people that would say, you're going to hold some view that they consider this is what Islam really is, and that to change it is going to be a deviation. So I guess sometimes when I come to these various events, and be it Islamic, Christian, or what have you, there's an emphasis, obviously for good reason, on this is the similar, this is the good parts. But I do think that when we talk about certain fears, that there is also, I want to say, to an extent, there could be a rational concern about the other, that there is a difference, and that those differences can be meaningful. And they could be religious or they could be cultural. And so we see, for instance, and I by no means say that this is a norm, but when you do hear stories, for instance, like honor killings in the United States, and obviously it gets blown up, but this is an issue of where I think people see there is people coming from different cultures, right, and bringing those traditions to the United States. And then there's that question, is like, well, not just how do you judge or differentiate, but do we be honest that, let's say, within the Jewish community or within the Christian community, we have these problems that is not just, made up, and that we are going to be facing it and vocally saying, like, this is not acceptable.
Our main goal, honestly, is we, as Muslims, merely just means one who submits to the will of God. So, as the individual goal of a Muslim is that we want to worship God the way He's supposed to be worshipped, and everything that we have is praise to God. We praise everything when we praise everything. So that's individual.
It's just to have sufficient rights so we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all we are asking for is just that freedom of worshipping Allah alone. So as you see around the world, it is not being given to us. Because if you look at the controversy of the cartoons, if you compare that to something happened in Austria where Isa alayhi salam, Jesus, peace be upon him, he in one of the museums in Austria, there was an exhibit where some artist painted a very blue, very well-lit picture of Jesus with 12 disciples, indicating as if they had a relationship. So after that exhibit, the exhibit was taken down in a week. Why? Because the museum received a lot of calls and a lot of letters from Catholic faith and Christian ministries, and so the museum gave a reason that to have respect for the sacred, we're going to take down this exhibit. So where was these statements when our prophet, peace be upon him, was portrayed in a wrong sense? So it was not present. So the main intention of the communities in the West, of Muslim communities in the West, is just to have that freedom of worshipping our God, Allah alone.
People kind of discovered Islam in this country. They didn't know much about it. They were interested in studying Arabic. They were interested in reading some things about Islam and finding out about it. We had events on campus. There were quite a few events that tried to inform people. And I thought, okay, that's good. People are being understanding. They're looking into this. They're trying to explore it. And those people are long gone, of course. They graduated and they went away. And it's gotten much worse, I think, in the last couple of years. And what worries me is that about where this is coming from is that I don't think it's all coming from Fox News, although some of it is. I'm afraid that some of it's coming from certain churches. And people hearing this from a pastor, that makes it very, very difficult to talk about it and to change it. I think that's really a problem in a certain segment of the churches today. I grew up in a fundamentalist church, so I know what that's like. And it was anti-Catholic at the time, a lot of it. You really believe it when people tell you those things. So I'm concerned that that's one of the sources of some of the stronger feelings these days. I don't know what to do about that.